by one rocket, one missile, one Israeli missile, they bombed the house. And my family were under the rubble, and they stood for many hours. I don't know exactly. My daughter, she came to my room at 5 a.m. She turned on the light and she opened the door and she said, "Mom," I told her, "What? Whose?" Directly, I asked her whose, and she said, "They bombed my aunt's house." I spent the hardest hours thinking who's still alive and who's killed, because I didn't know exactly. I tried to call them. I tried to call my brothers, my sisters, my mom, my dad, and there is no any connection. There is no signal. There is nothing. From 5 to 9:30 exactly, I called my sister-in-law, who get out from under the rubble, and she told me that all of them passed away, had been killed in this. And then I tried to understand that 48 persons, 48 souls, 48 future, and 48 hopes, they gone one second. All of them gone. Of course, they had names. They are not just numbers, and I will tell you their names. My dad, Abdelaziz Aliyan. My mom, Zainab Al-Houl. My big brother, he's Mahmoud Aliyan, with his wife, Sally Musa, and his children, Zain, Lubna, Kinan, and Sari. My brother, Muhammad, with his 4 children, Az, Layan, Adnan, and Adam. My brother, Yusuf, and my sister, Nisreen Aliyan, and her 2 sons, Hussam and Rissam, and daughters, Afnan, Isra, Ragad, and Misk, and grandchildren, Ismail, Muhammad, and Wasim. My sister, Jihan, with her husband, Khalid, and their daughter, Lina, with her husband, Dais, and her children, Lim and Yahya, and their son, Musa. My sisters, Aya, with her children, Majd, with his wife, Amani, and their daughter, Sarah, and their daughter, Dima, with her husband, Muhammad, and their children, Abdul Hakim. Their and her son, Omar, too. My aunt, Wafa, and these 48. Of course, I'm telling you their names and what happened with them. I have one sister who survived from under the rubble with her 2 grandchildren, and I have my sister-in-law and now she's have her treatment in Egypt. My sister with her grandchildren in Turkey, they are having the treatment there. And I still have one niece and one nephew and two nieces in Gaza. They are still there, and two sisters. They are still in Gaza under attack, and I don't know if they will get out from Gaza, from this war or not. I don't know exactly. So I know that the UK is supporting and arming Israel, and they are supporting Israel in this war, and they are part of this genocide. So I want to ask them, and if they can push the government here to stop supporting Israel and to stop arming them, and to try to help the children there in Gaza who injured there. That because, as you know, all of you maybe you know that there is no hospitals, no medicine, and no surgeries there. So they need to get out from Gaza to have treatment here, maybe in the UK, to have treatment in hospitals, and that's it. Thank you for hearing my story.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for response. I appreciate Mr. Tamal Rusulu to hear this story. And sadly, we lost hope in this government.
Sorry, just I want to say that because
please.
Here, there are pictures.
Wow.
This is the picture. Yeah, the whole family.
Can I push that from your side?
So this is one of the stories that we're hearing every day. You know, these mass number of massacres happening on a daily basis. Every day we hear like a family of 50, 30, less or more being massacred in a cold-blooded murder by the criminal Israeli army, which is, as I said earlier, supported by this government. We've made it very clear when the chairman of the community met the Prime Minister Keir Starmer over I think 2 weeks ago. He made it very clear on the complicity of the UK government here. And he blamed him. He'll tell you in a bit what he said on behalf of the community for Keir Starmer. We blame the government, and Keir Starmer is to be responsible as well a little bit because he's the Prime Minister now. And we all remember his LBC radio interview where he clearly supported the ongoing genocide. And this support of the genocide is very vivid now because he did nothing, literally he did nothing. Even a basic humanitarian gesture to get the children of Gaza out for treatment in the UK, even a symbolic number, has not been made. While it happened when the Ukrainian war took place or taking place. Sadly, this is the government. And you know what? Many agencies, UN agencies, even the United Arab Emirates, they are evacuating its children on a daily basis in the Gaza Strip. It's almost 300 now, the number of people, of children being evacuated. The number is fluctuating, but the government can do something. The government that is sending these military flights and raids from Cyprus to help Israel logistically can do it. They can evacuate when they want, but they don't have the intention yet. They don't have the political will, you know, to do this and to help the Palestinians. We are like the other for them. I mean, I clearly say it for the Prime Minister here and the Labour Party. We are the other. We're not being considered a human. At least the children are not being evacuated out of the Gaza Strip. We've made our efforts, you know, and made some lobbying efforts for the Conservative government when it comes to the visa scheme. Nothing has happened. And then we've done the same effort. We're doing it as we speak now with this current government, but nothing is happening. They don't care. Simply the British government do not care about it. They don't even dare to describe what is happening there as a genocide. This is the Prime Minister that promised to support the Palestinian rights before even being a Labour Party leader. I'll leave you now with Dr. Kanfa to speak more about this session and also his meeting with the Prime Minister, with the community, and what he literally said to the Prime Minister and what was the response of the Prime Minister on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for organizing this meeting. Thank you for Hitam giving us really a grasp of the reality on the ground, defining the actual term of what genocide can mean. Thank you for everyone for coming and attending. And speaking of the visit to the Prime Minister, we were invited a coordinated visit by the Palestinian Embassy. We did have a short consultation with our community members, many of which didn't really like the idea at all, which is something we have delivered and presented. Hitam was with us in that very meeting, and we told him, because the community lost trust in you, no confidence, and we didn't see much of you when you were in the opposition, and we don't see you taking any action while you are in power, simply because the community believe that you are a genocider. And your interview with LBC, which contributed heavily to dehumanize the Palestinians, is still hanging in their image. So they are just really thinking of you being part of this genocide. And this is why we don't really see anything positive from your government until otherwise you are showing something different. Part of the discussion, which was really very direct discussion, after many cases were presented, one of them, of course, Hitam's case, showing some condolences, some feelings from the Prime Minister, but I must be honest and direct. He had offered nothing, which is something I told him at the beginning, that we don't really have much of hope that you will be taking any action, especially with regard, to the seizing, arming the Israeli army. And we're saying that the government knows very well that F-35, which is equipped by your government, is killing our people in Jabalia as we speak. And as a matter of fact, the massacres were taking place while we were sitting in that meeting. So I wanted to make it clear to him that the Palestinian community members lost the confidence in the Labour Party, which they have subscribed, supported, and voted for in the last few decades, simply because they represented the justice values, the human rights, and you, as a Prime Minister, you were for the entire of your life as a human rights lawyer, and you are acting exactly in the opposite direction. So this is something we expressed ourselves bluntly. Of course, we did have some demands. One of them is directly connected to the injured children in the Gaza Strip. the reunification of the family members, especially the mothers who has connection and family members here in the UK. And one of the main proposals we have proposed that time, that we are not looking for any kind of financial help from the British government. Our Palestinian community can tackle it. Just all what we need is to have an encouragement from the government to give or to grant those children visas. And that's it. Of course, now it's almost 2-3 weeks and we had heard nothing at all from their side. Believe it or not, I don't really believe we are going to get anything out of that. As for the complicity and accountability, we came to know, as many of you may have came to know, David Lammy, the foreign minister, is being troubled by the definition of genocide. And I don't know how did he have really the encouragement to spell it out, to say you are undermining the seriousness of the term. This takes us usually to this kind of gray area, which usually, traditionally, the British government tried all the time to stay from within. Hello. Hi.
Yes. Yes, the Palestinian community.
How are you? Sorry, we're late. We had to move over.
You have the chair.
You can sit here as well. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So our independent MPs are here now. So
Apologies for the lateness.
Can we apologise? I think we owe to the community of people that have attended it to give you an explanation. As MPs, we have to vote, and when voting starts, we have to be in chamber, and we have to cast our votes. And we anticipated that the voting would be around 7:30. Unfortunately, it got called at 6, and there were 5 separate votes which could take, and we know about an hour, which is what happened. So can I apologise on behalf of all independent MPs. I know that Jeremy Corbyn would have wanted to be here, but he's got a live vehicle in Mexico, something separate. Adnan would have wanted to be here, but he unfortunately is not down in London today because of private commitments. And Iqbal Mohammed sends his apologies, but he will try to make it. But in any event, you've got
Thank you so
two
much.
parliamentarians.
let me just brief you on the critical field. So we have Dr. Saeed Shah from the Palestinian community, one of the founders. We have Dr. Nihat Fatwa, the chairman of the Palestinian community in the UK. We have Fatana Aliyan. She just told us about the story of her family. She was 48 of her family members in the Gaza Strip in one of the attacks in the Gaza Strip. We've been talking about accountability. We have a lot of questions, and hopefully, as somebody who's in Parliament, although you support our cause, it's good to hear more about the accountability and the support of the genocide, which is, as you know, is mainstream within the different parties, within the government. Dr. Khalfar was talking about his visit to the Prime Minister. He could even brief you about it, and to hear that the Prime Minister is offering nothing, but even evacuating the children of Gaza is something shameful. The community is really in despair to hear more on what could be done from the Parliament and the government. So, Lebanon as well, we have Palestinian refugees as well. Dr. Nihat?
Yeah. So when we worked with David Lammy, this is.
Can you briefly deal with the Prime Minister? Have you done to the Prime Minister?
Yes,
We've been
yes.
Just summarise it just for us.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, we were invited in a coordinated joint visit with the Palestinian embassy. We spoke on behalf of the Palestinian community. We had Khitan with us, with other 7 members of the community, which every one of them really had a difficult story to tell. Speaking on behalf of the Palestinian community in the UK, we did make it clear to the Prime Minister that he is actually involved in this genocide, referring to his famous interview with the LBC, dehumanizing the Palestinians, considering that Israel had the full right really to starve the Palestinians, to besiege them, and to deprive them from food and water. And based on that, we told them that the visit by itself, that very visit, was really kind of controversial, and the Palestinian community members didn't like the idea to visit because they said it's going to be a waste of time. Yeah, but having a platform to represent the Palestinians, so we wanted really to pass a message, and the message was that the Labour Party, as in the opposition, wasn't really functioning as supposed to function, and then when they became in power, also they have been changed, and we wanted really to see some change. Of course, we conveyed a message upon the community with few demands, and we thought that the demands are very simple, very straightforward. One of them is giving the injured children of Gaza a speedy track visa, and the Palestinian community would be able to tackle every single issue with regard to the children. We haven't really received any kind of feedback on that. The other point was about seizing, arming Israel, and we were actually coming to the 10 Downing Street, while the F-35, which we have mentioned to the Prime Minister, receiving the bombs from the British companies with the permission of the British government, killing and massacring our people in Jebel as we speak. This really was the real case that time. In addition to that, the reunification of the Palestinian families from Gaza, especially the moms, the mothers, because we have a lot of family members here, specifically from Gaza. They had left their mothers, whether some of them in Turkey, some of them in Egypt, many of them still in Gaza, and they are standing just alone there. No one left, like Khitan with 48 members of her family. We did have another lady with 35 members of her family, and she couldn't really just bring her mother to the UK, although she did previously come here. So she was granted the visa. She came here with this time, with this difficult situation. They just really denied her the visa. So these are really a briefing of our. Of course, he showed some kind of sympathy, condolences, but it wasn't really that convincing to us at all. We didn't believe that any of our demands will be met or will be delivered. They promised us for a follow-up, but follow-up, it seems to be stopped by the Israeli checkpoints somewhere, because we thought just the Israeli checkpoints in the West Bank and Gaza, but it seems to be they are in the roads of London, so never really came through. So we didn't have any kind of feedback or any time, despite the fact the Lord Wajid was attending the meeting, and Generator, she was attending the meeting, and Hamish Falcon, yes, the Middle Eastern department. Yeah, so all of them, they were actually referred to to follow up, but thanks God we haven't received really any kind of follow-up, which tells us a lot about this government and how they react. So it seems to be, it was to them kind of a cosmetic invitation rather than really any kind of a practical step to be made. And we told them we don't need really anything even touching upon politicization of the story. All what we need is just humanitarian. And as we see that now, there is no connection or no contact with regard to the visit with the embassy. We didn't have really any feedback. Yesterday, the last update, they said they didn't really come back to us. And it is the same because they took our emails, they took our phone numbers, and I don't know whether to say luckily or unluckily, we are being unfortunate, being Palestinians and representing the Palestinian community in that specific meeting. And this is the story of our visit to 10 Downing Street. Shall I move forward?
Yes.
Yeah. So today, because we are very concerned really about David Lammy, because he was our guy, just we were mentioning him before you entered the room. We are not just concerned, we are very troubled about his approach towards the genocide. Asking the people, the public, being of course a human rights lawyer, just to be careful about using that term, saying don't undermine the seriousness of that term. In the Palestinian community, we did have really a very serious discussion about this, and we thought, shall we tell him that we have, for example, mass murdering, mass killing, so this would be right, presentable more to him to say, well, what's happening in Gaza is mass murdering, rather genocide. But as we did have this kind of discussion running all the time, just came to my mind why we don't, and this is a very serious really, why we don't redefine even the genocide, because what's happening in Gaza, according to the experts, it's beyond genocide. Because with the time scale, with the area, because here we are hearing a lot of people in the mainstream media, probably Lammy is being affected by that, saying, we have destroyed the Dresden. So we did it. So when you justify killing by another example of mass murdering, instead of feeling ashamed of doing this, whether it happened in the context of the Second World War, or it happened just out of nothing, with the big debate about the figures and numbers killed in Dresden, it doesn't give anyone any merit to justify. We want really the Palestinian to get the right of being recognized as victims, because we are victims. And it seems to be, when we have this reflection, mirroring this kind of ignorance, denial of the genocide taking place as we see it, even at the moment, I think this foreign minister shouldn't be really taking any stage, whether on the public speech or in the special hearings, simply because he is undermining the suffering of the victims, which they are still subject to this kind of harshness. So he is continuing the same series of dehumanizing the Palestinian again. Even when it comes to the complicity and accountability, he didn't dare to mention that some of the British citizens are killing the people in Gaza now. Because we know the reports telling us that many of the British citizens are serving in the Israeli army. So if he doesn't like to recognize it as a genocide, can he take them to the court being war criminals? Because under the lowest measure, we can really expect to consider what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Lebanon as war crimes. So they are war criminals. We know that the law, which is called the Enlistment Foreign Act 1870, states that the British citizens can't serve in another army to kill the other people. And this is still applicable. It's never been really wavered, it's still there. And if he doesn't recognize the international law, I thought, I was mistaken for a long time, that the British government really wanted to show that they are a very influential player when it comes to the human rights and to the international law. This is how they brought us on, and this is how they are convincing us to bring and to raise our children to say British value. Part of it is being an influential player on the international stage. If this is really what is the influence they are adopting, then this is very disastrous, and it has to stop. It really has to stop. And we are wondering why the MPs are not bringing this to the parliament and talking about it and sending, especially those soldiers who are in reality, in the actual term, committing war crimes in every single day they are serving. In addition to that, if they have any kind of confusion that those soldiers exist, then let it be about the organizations they are working under the government radar. And they are receiving the gift aid from the public fund. We know many organizations, many charities, or many organizations, they are enjoying the charitable status. Under the English law, they are receiving 26% of the taxpayers' money in order to encourage and send British citizens to serve in that brutal army. This is something we are very troubled with, and we would like really to see a real change in that regard. Changing the definition of genocide, we agree with Lamy, because it does actually, saying genocide now, undermine the suffering of the Palestinian victims. We need, referring here to Albanese, the special United Nations convoy, and the consistent reports coming from the United Nations saying that we actually passed the level of genocide. So yes, Palestinians should be really putting in different brackets when it comes to the definition of genocide. It's different because I know in former Yugoslavia, the genociders were sent to the court just because they were committed, they were committing genocide against 8,000 Yugoslavian Muslims. This is what they meant. This is what they were convicted for. So now we are talking about 50,000. 70% of them, children, are women like Hitam's family. Because many of her family, she was actually naming every single member of her family. And, just you become speechless. Sometimes we feel we lost words. Every few days in the Palestinian community, we have a morning gathering. Every other day we have a news coming from Gaza where many people, they don't dare to open really their text messages. They don't want to see the messages. Once they say this is, this is coming from Gaza, then it should be blocked. Because they fear the worst. Which is expected more than any good news coming from Gaza. So based on that, I would like really David Lammy to be questioned over the the denial of the genocide. I would call him directly as being genocide denier. This is one. The second one is holding the British citizens accountable according to the British law, not according to the commitment of the British government towards the international law. And one of the basics, we can't express more serious demand when it comes to the arm selling. Yes. There is no justification whether we are talking about ethical, legal, moral, you name it. Under any kind of a criteria, this must stop. Yes. There is no justification at all. I wonder how they can really bear it till now.
But from the adversary, from it rejected for genocide, it's not just the numbers. We have far more than what you have quoted now under the rubble.
Yes.
So what you're quoting is Ministry of Health saying
indeed.
The number is 50, 40,
indeed.
Under the rubble will be twice.
Correct.
That's one second. Genocide actually doesn't just mean numbers killed. There's an intent on the side of the parties, the government.
Of course, yeah.
The intent was for genocide. They stated loudly, if you want, not just the Prime Minister, but his ministers, the intent of killing.
Yes.
Including kids under the Malik.
Yes.
There was intent, there was starvation, there was a siege, there was no fuel, there was destruction of all infrastructure, health infrastructure, education infrastructure. What more is under genocide?
Yeah, indeed.
And these are not just said, taught, but written about. But they know, they daily were saying what they are intending to do and carrying out. What is genocide?
Yeah.
I'm wondering. Mr. Lammy.
Yeah, so I would like to thank you for listening. And we would like really to see something taking into the action side of the story. Because we are not going to give up, by the way. This is something we are known as Palestinians to be always resilient, hopeful, and we promised everyone since 76 years. It is an inheritance from our grandparents that they will never break our souls, they will never break our spirit, and we will continue fighting within our ability in order to get the justice done. And thank you.
Actually, my grandson yesterday brought me the key. My father never passed me the key to the house, but my grandson brought me a top. It's a key with a Persian flag, and this is your key to open. It's only 9. So I hope that the future as well will still persevere with us throughout the
So if you want to say a few words and then ask the Q&A for the...
Yeah, well, can I first of all thank you and once again apologise for not being able explain what the US family members as a community must be going through. And as parliamentarians, the Independent Alliance certainly are doing whatever we can to support the fight of the Palestinians. It's a just cause that you will already know that our elections as part of our manifesto was in relation to foreign affairs the fight of Palestinians. And so it's not about specific communities, it's about humanity. Our constituencies are very diverse in communities, and the fact that we've been elected demonstrates how the frustrations felt throughout the UK. And you don't have to just look at these elections to see that. When one looks at what the British public wanted back in November of last year, just over 70% wanted a ceasefire back then. Yeah. And governments have simply ignored the call of the British public. And we will do whatever we can, and we have been, you may have seen on whatever debates we've taken part in. There was a Westminster Hall debate which we led on in relation to the humanitarian issue in Gaza, and we managed to get quite a number of cross-party parliamentarians attending that and supporting the plight of the Palestinians. So we are seeing a lot more MPs joining with the sympathetic view, and that shift, I think, is partly because of what people are witnessing on a daily basis, and must have something to do with the fact that the Netanyahu government and the military personnel just simply choose to ignore direct requests from Western allies, and that is something which is somewhat surprising. But we've got a bill presented by my colleague who sits here. He'll talk more about it. Showbit has put in a bill for the recognition of the Palestinian statehood. And so we're trying to encourage as many MPs to support that, because we firmly believe that the British government should recognise the state of Palestine unconditionally, not as part of a peace process. I mean, that's just utter nonsense when you think about all of the history. And so we believe that if the UK government was to adopt what many of the European governments have already done, 143 countries out of the 76 or 96 countries in the United Nations have already recognized the state of Palestine. We genuinely believe that in that recognition would drive forward a better peace deal. Because at this moment in time, whatever the proposals are, ultimately it's a matter for the Palestinians, but whether it's a two-state or a single state. The fact is that we are hearing a general recently who said that it's not a realistic thing to think about a Palestinian statehood. We've had settlers sit on a hilltop talking about how they're going to annex the Gaza Strip and what the property should look like. But sorry, forgive me. But no, the Gaza Strip, but also the West Bank. And we've had the Foreign Minister talk about it, the Israeli Foreign Minister. So that kind of language is almost driving a narrative that you shouldn't even be thinking about the state of Palestine. Yes. And so I think it's important that bill is being debated on the 29th of November. And so we will do whatever we can in our power to persuade other MPs to raise questions whenever the opportunity arises. And you will see the independent MPs, whenever we've had an opportunity, whenever we've got up in the council chamber, we've always been very vocal, and Iqbal has just
Graced us with his presence.
He has, yeah. That's all. I've already explained it well that we were caught up with the votes, and so I've already apologised that we were late because of that reason. But we just had a brief summary in relation to meetings which the organisations had, the Prime Minister and Mr. Lamy, and not being, although sympathetic, there's no real concrete action coming from them. The organisations are asking us to do whatever we can to help in the plight of Palestinians. And I was just telling him what we've done so far. So we had a debate in Westminster Hall in relation to the humanitarian situation. We raised questions at every opportunity that was given to us, whether it was in relation to UNRWA, whether it was in relation to recognition of Palestine, whether it was in relation to weapons. And we've seen a big movement, certainly from Labour MPs, which are now quite vocal. And so I think there's pressure on the ground from the British communities, and we've just got to continue fighting. And I think, you know, as the brother said, that you know, the Palestinian community, alhamdulillah, is a steadfast community, and you know, we need to hope and continue our fight, and inshallah see a free Palestine in our lifetime, and we need to champion that. But they've asked us to speak, so
Thank you,
sure.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you everybody who's attended this meeting, and once again apologies for our delay. I'm going to say something it's sometimes even hard for me to believe, but I sincerely believe somewhere in my heart that the darkest part of the night is just before dawn. And to hear what you have gone through, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of millions like you, is something that is unimaginable. As a gentleman, please forgive me, I can't recall your name, said that this was premeditated. It wasn't a secret. They declared it on television what they were going to do. So they said, we are going to do this. We have now witnessed what they have done on television, even worse than possibly what they had even told us. And for me, I think I can tell what the conclusion is going to be afterwards and the rhetoric that's going to come afterwards. So this is being played in real time. They told us what they were going to do. We've got the screens, we can see what they're doing. As my colleague Ayub has said, we have done, but we haven't done enough, because we are still discussing this today. Our elections, on the many reasons for our victories, but the main reasons was our stance on Gaza. And this is the first time in the history, possibly of this country, ever, that we have parliamentarians who have been elected because of what is happening in Gaza. And that is a small thing. It hasn't changed anything in the immediate future. But if you take that in context, it's a very, very powerful message, as you've said. If you did a survey back then, over 70% of the British population, and it was a diverse survey, it wasn't just Muslim community or the Arab community, they wanted an immediate ceasefire. There is a disparity between our government, our parliamentarians, and what the people of this country want and what we need. So on that, I will say an apology that we haven't been able to do much, but for every single point that I heard you speak about, I think on every single point we have raised that issue. So when David Lammy in Parliament, in Chamber, said to equate what is happening in Gaza with a genocide is almost demeaning to the term genocide, paraphrasing, was after a question that I had asked him, and 2 minutes later he had said that. As for the situation, there was a day in Parliament where we had a debate about Ukraine and how we must extend, rightfully, our support for the Ukrainian people, in particular the students and the ill. We had a debate about Palestine straight after, And on that, I raised the question whether we could, there's quite a few charities, children, names but not numbers, or there's quite a few, that we could maybe find a way to bring up the injured, not even the injured, the sick Palestinian children. No, who are just sick,
Yes,
the children get
yes,
sick.
people in need, yes.
Yes. And maybe find a safe pathway like some of our European countries and bring them to our country. I got a response that was wholly unsatisfactory. And I've raised that 3 times now. Okay, because let's look at humanity. And if you can't have humanity for children, what can you have humanity for? So we will go and continue with that. As for the F-35s, the parts that we are selling, I think all 3 of us and Jeremy and everybody has raised, as well as Labour MPs have raised this repeatedly. Again, 9% reduction reminds me of a Malcolm X quote,
Yes.
that when somebody stabs you with a 9-inch knife and takes out 3 inches and expects you to say thank you, essentially.
Exactly.
You know? So we will continue, and we are cognizant of these things. I love when you said, if this is not genocide, is it mass murder? You know, we will ask him this now. If it's not mass murder, is it ethnic cleansing? What is it? What is your definition of what is happening? We have to put the spotlight on them. Okay. Acutely, we are still, for us, going to ask for an immediate ceasefire at every opportunity. We have written to David Lammy. As for your question on the charity organizations that are funding, there has been a letter that has been sent to David Lammy on a legal basis. Okay. And we will write to David Lammy on that specific, and we haven't raised that question specifically in the chamber, but that is one that we will raise.
Yes, please.
Okay, so that will definitely be. We want access to aid, but we want evacuation, and we want cessation of complete sales. I don't care if they say it's only 1% of what is made. That's not the point. This is our country. We are Great Britain, and we set the standards on these issues. If we want to lead on human rights, then we must be consistent. Long term, we have to continue with the ICJ. And we know the challenges that they are facing.
Yeah,
we all face that.
Sorry, just for this. What is most concerning about Lamy, that it's kind of preparing the public for the new position of the government with regard to the ICJ.
Yeah.
Because if he is really publicly, clearly saying this is not really the case, then we might see a repositioning step very soon. So this is why we are really very troubled about his statement. Yeah.
As my colleague said, we're passing a bill on the 29th of November, which we hope will get debated, is the recognition of the state of Palestine. How that looks, etc., that is something that we're working on. I am not Palestinian. I feel embarrassed sometimes to speak on. I'm not speaking on their behalf. I am trying to give them a voice. That's all I'm trying to do. And we keep this as something that we can negotiate in the future for lasting peace. Reparations, I think we should, we shouldn't shy away from this. No, we need rebuilding, and we need funding. And that's all the darkness, the hope and the light. We have seen very strong evidence of the legal route. We can get them legally. That's the only thing they're going to lead them to change their attitude. Humanity, they'll play with it later, but it's the legal route we need to go down. The other hope I have is the Palestinian people. Your resistance, your resilience, your humanity, your strength is beyond anything I think history can even testify to. And I know these are mere words, but we pray we could have an ounce of the strength of the Palestinian people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
May I just suggest a query? Sorry. Because all the laws assign self-defending right to the occupier. Why we don't ask the MPs what kind of right should have the occupier? Because we know now everyone
self-defending. Okay, perfect. Self-defense of the occupier. What kind of rights does the occupied should have? Forget genocide, massacre, or whatever. Just only list it to me what kind of right I have as occupied.
That's a very good question. And that's something I would raise, but they go down the legal route on that, and it becomes all very absolutely.
So, Mr. Kwai, if you want to say a few things as well.
I'm a director of the Palestinian NGO charity which works in that's what trying to work in Gaza as Israel, not trying to help with taking out children, taking to the states, taking to the Gulf, etc. We try to get more, but it is now practically blocked. We can't get them out. But as Dr. has said, we can bring them here. We don't need the money. We've got the organization to do it, the funds to do it. But we don't have the wherewithal to get it through this government. What can we do to get them to start looking at the humanitarian part of it? Forget about the legal, forget about the sick, and the humanitarian part of these children, amputees, people with heart problems, cancer. We're willing to pay for all of this. We are not dependent upon the British taxpayer, but this is from the NGO, and I am a NGO, I'm telling it very clearly.
Yeah.
We're ready to help out with whoever we bring out of Chile. If we can.
Letter, if you can brief us, we can send it to the Department of International. We can maybe look at that. Letter. We can maybe discuss and see how we would like to already help them more than that. You know, because I've asked it 3 times. And just one quick thing, because I can't read my own writing. I'm an optician and dip my glasses almost got sniper. Is what you did say is very important, and I'm sure Bob will agree with me, is we do have affiliates in the Labour Party. They're backbenchers, they come to many meetings, attitudes are changing, we just need to give them that courage and strength. But there is that a little bit of hope there. We've seen them changing quite a lot in the last few weeks.
We are very happy in the Palestinian community to come forward really with any kind of positive interaction. And we said it many times, we have our own leader here leading in that regard, and he's dedicating most of his time just for that.
The whole family member of her family must still have 13. Could we help her to save their lives, to come bring them here to her?
I think she has one member.
Look, her family passed away in the beginning of the genocide of October. Look, 48 members of her family. They killed by genocide. And just save 10 or 13 still sick and injured.
Injured?
Yes.
7?
Could help her to bring her. Where are she?
Some of them in Turkey and some of them in Gaza.
In Egypt.
Still in Gaza.
And Turkey.
Where do you reside? Where do you reside
In
She's in London.
Egypt.
She has the right to bring some of them.
Yeah.
Because she's the only one that's looking at it.
Because I've managed to get 2 students come
Please, if
from
could,
Leicester
yes,
via the
please,
university.
yeah.
Even
If
that
could
took
help to save their lives.
Can you just give a chance for Mr. Khalid to say a few things, and then let's open the floor for Q&A. You will finish with the MPs. Please. And then we'll open the Q&A.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum, and apologies again for being late. I don't want to repeat what my honourable friends have already said. 4 months in, I think we are all acclimatised to this place, and we feel we have an understanding, a better understanding. But we've also seen the worst parts of humanity in this place. All the levers that are available we're identifying and trying to use. But I was at a dinner on Friday to honour Dr. Grace Pendle from South Africa, who brought the case against Israel at the ICJ. And she gave 3 messages, and I don't know if I remember them correctly, but I'm sure my colleagues will correct me. But before I go to those 3 messages, I always reflect, I always think, people ask me, how did you do this? How did you get elected? Somebody was unknown, never been in politics, not a party, and you're now in Parliament. And
Sorry, can you speak up?
Yes, sure, I don't know why the mic's, but yeah, that's better. Hopefully that's better. We move towards. And the only answer I have, everything is from Allah and God's will, that He guided us to unite. Unite for justice, unite for peace, unite for the Palestinian people. And the result of the unity was very quick. So within 7 months, we had 5 independent councillors and 1 independent MP. And we have had meetings like this with different groups, individually over the last 4 months. And this is not a criticism, please forgive me, it shouldn't come like a criticism, but I'm still not clear how the different groups work together to achieve the same objective, which is justice for the Palestinian people, a sovereign state, stopping the killing. I think priority 1 is stop the killing. Priority 2 is provide the aid, and then to move towards justice and peace and deoccupation, the withdrawal of Israel from all the Palestinian lands, however you want to define them, but if we say 1967. So it's really important for me, and I know my colleagues are more informed, to understand the connection between the groups, how they're working together, and to then coordinate actions within Parliament and also outside of Parliament. The power of unity must be leveraged, must be accessed. So it's not a criticism, maybe there's great coordination, maybe there's really good collaboration, but for me, I'm not clear. So that's one thing. And when we come here, when the groups come into Parliament and inviting parliamentarians, Monday afternoon at 3 is not really a good time to have people participate. So it's really important to understand commitments and the agenda and where people are. Because I couldn't make the meeting on Monday either, and I apologise for that. But the message from Dr. Grace Pendle, and she reflected on what they did for South Africa. So academics, get all the academics on side, write to them, get them to boycott their peers, their colleagues, the other institutions that they collaborate with, on the basis of that it's an apartheid, genocidal, occupier state. Okay, this really has a lot of power. It's individuals. The governments, they all know the truth. Brothers and sisters, we know the truth now through live streaming, but they've known the truth before we could see what was going on. They've known the truth for over 100 years, over the last 76 years, over the last 57 years, over the last 6 invasions of Gaza since 2009. They know the truth. Telling them what they know, and they have a conscious position that they're taking. It's not out of ignorance, okay? I'm not going to sit here and label it because it's not constructive. But they know what's going on. They know what was planned. They can see it being executed multiple times worse than we could imagine. And they have a position where they are in breach of international law. Why? I can't answer that question. So the legal route is really important. But the academia, Dr. Grace mentioned that during apartheid in South Africa, there was a UN commission on apartheid. And we should write and start a petition for the UN to set that up again. So this, I didn't know didn't exist again, so we need that action. These are really tangible, quick actions. Get an international petition, everything's online, get 5 million, 10 million, 100 million signatures, and get the UN to set up a commission on apartheid. And then the last part I've forgotten, but I think it was around the legal route. The different rulings. So I've always hung my hat on the July the 19th advisory opinion, which declared first time in the UN that the occupation was illegal and it should be ended immediately. But the part that was interesting to me was that it obliged all member states to stop their relationship with Israel, political, diplomatic, economic, military, that would perpetuate the occupation. And any state that is not doing that is in breach of international law and cannot deny it. Cannot deny it. So this is what Brother Hossam has repeated many times. And this needs to be pushed with every single state. So there are states that are speaking out against the atrocities, asking for actions to be taken by Israel, by US, by Britain, by Germany, by France. But they're still trading with Israel. They still have economic, political, diplomatic ties. Now, some states, which I won't name, there is a reason, and they told us to our face. So there can be reasons why there's a benefit to the Palestinians for a state to stay with a relationship with Israel. And it's all about directly saving lives and being able to provide aid. But 148 states which recognize Palestine, which recognize the mandate of the ICJ, not all of them have cut ties with Israel. Sanctions. Britain must cut all ties. Legally, it's obliged to. We are asking for it. The Labour MPs are asking for it. People are writing for it. But for some reason, they're not. They feel also that they can't be touched. You know, nobody's going to take them to court for breaching international law. And the message from Hossam, which was really, powerful. The international legal experts, even me and you, who are not legal experts, can see international law just collapsing. With every building and every apartment block and every hospital that's bombed, international law is just crumbling away. And we will end up in a world of barbarism if Palestine and the people of Palestine are not given justice, are not saved. They don't want a favour, they don't want extra, they don't want military aid. They just want to live. They just want to not be bombed, not be starved, not be oppressed. So we had an introspection, a review meeting 3 weeks ago, the independent MPs. And we are not patting ourselves on the back, oh, look at us, we've got here. The people put us here for a purpose. We've tried, but we are not satisfied because the killing hasn't stopped. And it's actually expanded into Lebanon, into Iran, So we, for us, for our constituents, they're worried about health, they're worried about education, they're worried about poverty, but they will not forgive us if we focus on that at the expense of justice for Palestine. So our priority, and it's declared, I said in my maiden speech, why my people, why my constituents have put me here? And there's no shame, there's no reason to hide that. They have their own problems, they have their own challenges in this country, but they are not one hair's breadth equivalent to the pain, the suffering, and the condition of the Palestinian people. So they will not forgive me to say, well, you spent all this time on the hospital or education, but you could have done more for Palestine. So we are now challenging ourselves to do more. And we decided we need to ramp up. We need to ramp up. We're asking questions. I think on October the 7th, I was provided with information about a number of families who have no surviving person left. The bloodline has ended, and on October the 7th, it was over 950. But since then, there'll be many more. Over 1,050 had only one surviving. remaining. And I asked this question to the Prime Minister, and again, they're very dismissive. Oh, what's happening is terrible, and it shouldn't, and aid should be allowed in, and your message is very powerful, and it shouldn't be happening. But I asked him, what is he going to do? What is he doing, and will he do to prevent that happening to the people who are still living? He didn't answer the question. When Lamy declared what's happening as not comparable to genocide, I had to leave the house. I left the chamber. I had to leave the chamber because, so but we need help. You need to utilize us. We are here for you 24/7. I am, and these brothers are.
Thank you so much.
But you need to be pragmatic, you need to be united, you need to be coordinated. We can't have itty-bitty groups having separate meetings, telling us to do the same things or different things with no real coordination.
This is the official Palestinian community.
This is the biggest, the Association of the Palestinian Community is the biggest and the oldest representative of the Palestinian.
But they've always divided and conquered.
Yeah, we work with everyone, and
we need your help to rally all the groups that are not around this table, all the groups who are doing great work, but they're doing it separately. We need that coordination. The coordination on the other side. When I post something, or Ayub or Shokat, we get 5 responses that are positive and 500 within an hour or a day, 5,000 that are attacking us. So the machine kicks into action. We're not affected. We don't care. We ignore it. But the people who are reading, it really can. So it's important that we coordinate.
Yes.
Anyway, I will end there because I want to listen to the people who are here.
So we got 8 minutes for like Q&A.
I wanted to say 2 things. Firstly, in terms of families or members of surviving families in Gaza, or those who've managed to go, say, to Egypt, and their relatives over here trying to bring them, there's at least one case before a British court brought by a young Palestinian lady from Gaza. There may be more, but I just happen to know this one lady. She was refused, her visa applications for her family were refused. And she has taken the Home Office to court. Now, hopefully, if she wins, perhaps that will set a legal precedent and might help you to lobby to bring other people in the same position over. If she loses, of course, we will be in even greater need for your help in continuing to lobby for this to take place. In terms of, you mentioned recognizing Palestinian statehood, which would be great. However, it will be toothless and cosmetic unless it goes with measures, some of which, for example, could not only focus on the genocide, which is awful and we're all transfixed by the horror of it, but the ethnic cleansing that is also going on, not only in Gaza, but also in the occupied West Bank. And because we're so focused on the genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing, the dispossession of Palestinian farmers, the land grabs, the attacks on Palestinians that are clearly aimed to try and get people to leave because the Zionists want the land without the people, will continue. So recognition of Palestinian statehood has to be accompanied by specific measures that have teeth and that would penalize ethnic cleansing and define what measures these are to penalize them and define what shapes this ethnic cleansing is taking and deserving of penalties.
So let's say I don't have questions actually, because questions are now very silly to ask after turning 1 year of this genocide. and again genocide. I personally carried the news to my mother of losing her family. It was 4 a.m. and I received the news and I was thinking, I was turning in circles in my room. I was looking for a way to go to my mother's room to ask and to tell her about the news. And what I remember is, since that moment until now, I paused my grief. I couldn't deal with it just because I'm focusing with my mother's grief and with my other losts, like my friends. I lost my dreams of coming back to Gaza to visit my lovely places I used to go with my friends. The other thing actually that I love every morning, that I studied international law, which is very silly, and I came here to the UK to complete my master's in international law. I used to hear about justice, ICC, ICJ, and I was like, what could be helpful more to the humanity, more than these courts and more than these definitions? But now I don't know what to say about our loss actually, but there are a lot of families in Gaza still, even in the north of Gaza Strip. Basically, I'm from the north of Gaza Strip, so I have a lot of people in there. I'm contacting them every single moment. One day, my friend, 2 days ago, he just texted me and he said, Roba, am I in a dream? Just tell me that everything is real now. He arrived the level that he's not recognizing if he's living this life or not. What we need is really to stop this, because it became really silly. We don't need questions. We don't need to say ceasefire now. We don't need all of these, because we used to. It's been a year now. I had my grandmother. She was the most amazing grandmother ever, because she had a dream, just one dream. And she passed her dream to the whole grandchildren. We were over 50 grandchildren. It's about her farm. She evacuated 1948 from Herbia, and she went to Gaza, and she built her own farm. And we lived just for this farm. They destroyed the farm. They killed my grandmother. They killed everything in our life. Now, Israel didn't only kill the people in Gaza, they killed us now. I found myself in the UK now, working, paying tax, and studying nothing. It's nothing about my own personality. Paying tax to go to arming Israel, to kill my family. So we are running in circles, looking for answers about something we are in. I always cry before going to sleep because I'm paying these taxes to the UK government. Because at the end of the day, I think that I was one of the killers of my family and the other families. So now we are dealing with our grief, but I don't know how we can reach the end, or if even we can reach the end of dealing with this grief. But I hope at least the few people that I still have in Gaza to be safe and to meet them one day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we're time's up. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, just in terms of the question of the statement, if I repeat something, it's just going to prolong things. We are going to do our level best. We hear you, we hear the communities that have elected us, and we see the atrocities on a daily basis. We need to do as much as we can. But Iqbal did mention something quite important, that is there needs to be unity amongst the different organisations so that we can have a single point of contact. Otherwise, what will happen is we can have numerous meetings which will take a lot of our time.
Correct.
We're not then focusing on the work that we should be doing. So we urge this organisation to reach out to us, get them under the same umbrella, so that if there's anything strategical we can do, we do. And if there's something that we want the organisations to do, we have that synchronised path where we can convey that. But look, thank you to each and every one of you that have come here, given up your time, valuable time. And as I say, Shaukat is presenting this bill. It's a step in the right direction. I hear what you say about getting a ceasefire, but at least we're getting something debated, and we want to be able to see which parliamentarians participate and what they say, because ultimately it's the people that put you in Parliament, and this is a just fight and a just cause, and we will continue to battle.
Thank you so much for
Thank you. And just briefly, we have a next meeting on the 12th of December, and the topic is civil society. So bringing all the community organizations, including the Palestinian ambassador, on the 12th of December with your sponsorship of this event. So we're working towards this, and we will ensure that all the communities working hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No.